It can be very frustrating trying to figure out why these plants that you bought or you grew are not growing, or they're growing slowly. Today, that's what I want to speak to you about what could be causing those things. As I'm speaking to you, I will be moving around the garden, so just to get things done. First thing I want to speak to you about is plant shock. When I say plant shock, I actually mean transplant shock. So when you've grown the plant yourself indoors, and when you plant it outside and you put it in this new environment, then the tree or the plant is not used to being in this new environment. It's used to the conditions of the house, and then you bring it outside and it's like, what's this? I don't know where I am. What I like to do is, when I have my plants growing indoors, I like to mimic the conditions of outside for my plants, so that when it comes outside, it's not surprise and not knowing what's going on. To do that, you'd like to maybe blow a fan on your seedlings in the house, kind of mimic some adversity that they will experience growing outside. I will also suggest, using grow lights rather than, regular sunlight that you would get out from your windowsill. But the key to getting your plants prepared for outside is to actually slowly start to integrate them to the outdoors. So some people will bring their plants out over a 3-day period. So the first day you keep it in some shade and you keep it outside maybe for a few hours. The second day you show it a little bit more sun, put it in a spot that has more sun, but don't keep it in like a full sun spot. You keep it there for maybe a half day. Then the next day you keep it somewhere where it's full sun, and then it's like it's getting used to the environment. For that, you can keep it outside for longer durations, but you want to make sure that the weather is not harsh. You don't want to bring it outside when, it's 100 degrees. Oh my gosh, that looks so much better. Now time for that one. Okay, so the second one on my list as to why your plant might be growing slowly is, let's say you have this huge tomato plant that's supposed to grow really, really tall. Like, some of them grow small, but a lot of us like to grow the tomatoes that are called indeterminate. There's a car coming. So indeterminate tomatoes will grow like 4 feet tall. Some people make their tomatoes grow 8 feet tall, and they produce throughout the whole season. And then we have the smaller varieties that you can put in containers and it's okay. And those will bloom just like one shot. So if you have tomatoes that are supposed to grow really big and you have them in this small 1-gallon container, well, the chances are it's not going to be able to grow as big or produce as much fruit, because it doesn't have enough space for its roots to grow, right? And we want plants to be happy to help those plants grow to their full potential. The third thing I have is not inadequate sun, so not enough sunlight. So let's say you have a plant that is underneath a shade tree. A lot of vegetable plants like full sun. So if you have a plant underneath a shade tree, is it going to be similar to that one? Can't go crazy. You may not get as much growth on it and enough food production, because it's not getting enough sun. Sometimes we plant little veggie plants underneath, like these tall vegetable plants, corn right in front of lettuce or marigolds, right? It's okay to companion plant, but just make sure that your corn is not going to block all the sunlight from your marigolds, alyssums. So it's a good idea to have your plants, the tall ones, planted on the north side of a container, and then the shorter ones planted on the south side, because the south side will get full sun, most of the sun, and the north side will get sun, but it will be like leftover. And since it's tall, they'll probably be swaying in the wind and branching out and spreading out, the tall ones, to be able to gather that sunlight, whereas your shorter plants won't be able to do that. So just make sure wherever you place your plants, you have enough sunlight, and that will help with bloom production. That will help with, growing big and producing. The next thing I have on my list is fertilizing. So whenever I plant my vegetable plants, I always go in with compost. Make sure that I started off with some rich soil, like adding compost, then some fertilizer. It could be fish fertilizer if you want to stay the organic route. You could also use biotone, that's also organic. You could use bone meal, blood meal for root production. Make sure that your plants are growing in a healthy, nutrient-filled, nutrient-dense environment. Some plants like more fertilizer than others. So if you're growing onions need lots of fertilizing. They are heavy feeders. So car coming. So as well as garlic and those kind of things. You want to make sure that you are fertilizing your plants, then you will see more growth. While some plants like a lot of sun, some plants don't like too much sun. So it's good to read up on your plants to know what kind of varieties you have before you plant them, so you know exactly where to put them. So my mother-in-law bought a fern, and she put them in blasting sun, hanging basket. And she called me and said, I don't know, this plant is not growing and it's brown all over, it's burning. What am I doing? So if you notice any burning on your plants, chances are, most of the time, is that they're getting too much sun. So you want to make sure that you read up on the plants, and some of them like shade. So ferns, for example, they like shade. They don't like to be in the blasting sun. Same thing with some coleus. Like I have a coleus here, but this one doesn't mind the sun. Some of them do mind, and they would prefer to be in the shade, protected. Dapple sun may be fine. Some plants like part sun and part shade. So I know it sounds like too much work, but once you get to know the plants, you may remember, or just kind of look it up on the plant tag. Try and see which plants will benefit from which kind of sunlight. The next one is watering. So a lot of us like to just water whenever we can, right? Like, why not? But some plants just like to know when they're going to get watered. So having something set up like a drip system or a routine where you know at 6 o'clock I'm going to water my plants, so that they know when they're going to get their water. They actually do a lot better that way, but make sure you water either way. And it's always good to water early in the morning, so that they have enough energy to kind of, take the sun, the burning sun throughout the day, or water them in the evening. I mean, no, don't water in the evening, actually, because if you water in the evening, that's when you start to have problems like powdery mildew, because there's not enough sunlight to kind of, take care of the excess water that's on the leaves. And you want to make sure you take care of the water on the leaves. So sometimes it's just not enough water, or sometimes it could be too much water. Oh, that looks so much better to me. You look good. Okay. I'm just shaping it up because it looks too wild for me. And you're not supposed to shape up this tree or cut it now, because you might forfeit some blooms. This is an almond tree, but I'm cutting it now because I really care about the shape. Just need to straighten you up with something other than this little baby. If you have too much, so sometimes it could be not enough water, so you need to water them a little bit more. And that could help you in the stunted plant department. But sometimes it could also be too much water. So if you give your plant too much water, you would know, your plant will tell you. And no plant likes to be sitting in, we call it wet feet, all day long. Your plants will tell you if they're getting too much water by their leaf color. So if you see a plant with yellowing leaves at the bottom, let's say this one, you see these yellow leaves? If you see your plant with a whole bunch of yellowing leaves at the bottom of the plant, it's an indication that it's getting too much water. So you want to make sure that once you start seeing this, then you want to start looking to reduce how much water you're giving it. Ooh, pluck some weeds since it just rained. Okay, so the drainage. So if you don't have enough drainage and the plant is swimming, then it's going to start rotting. You're going to start smelling like a rotting smell. But your first indicators may be the yellowing leaves. So if you reduce the water and it's still doing that, then it's most likely the drainage. It's not getting enough drainage. So if it's in a container, you need to switch it to a different container with better drainage, or take it out of that container and just kind of use a drill and drill more holes at the bottom. Another thing you can do is, if it's in the ground, let's say it's planted outside in the ground and you don't have good drainage there, because you have um, like really hard soil, right? Which is not your fault. So what you can do is you can lay down cardboard on the soil and then put on like a thick layer of compost, like maybe 2 or 3 inches of compost on top of it, with a thick layer of cardboard underneath. And then that will break down in the soil and actually give you better soil over time. So it'll work down into your soil, making your soil more lofty. All of those natural ingredients from the compost and also the paper from the cardboard will break down by the rainwater, and your garden will thank you for it in the long run. And you can plant that directly into that soil, the compost, and just kind of dig through the cardboard while it's still breaking down, and that will help keep the natural ecosystem underneath the soil healthy. The worms will come and work your soil and make it softer to work in. And also, if you don't have a large area to do that, or you really don't want to do that, you could always dig down into your soil and just kind of plant, put down compost into the soil and start planting directly into your soil, and your plants will thank you for it. Like, add compost. Some people add gypsum into your soil, and the plants will be happy. So that's what I do: gypsum, compost, fertilize, and then plant your soil, and make sure the soil is nice and soft and easy. So another thing you want to look out for is pests in the garden. You want to look behind your leaves, like if this was a plant, I would just look behind the leaves and just kind of make sure that there's nothing back there, and just using something like neem oil, soap and water inside of a container with some neem oil, or just go around your garden. And you could even, if it's slugs and you want to use something like Sluggo or slug repellent, and sprinkle it at the bottom of your containers, and that would help quite a bit. And just kind of try and identify what's eating your plants right now. That, because your plants live outside, so you're going to have a lot of natural competitors wanting to get at your food that you've provided. So if it's let's say rabbits or things like that, you want to make sure that you provide a cloche over your plant, something to just kind of cover it while they're little seedlings or babies. If it's mice, then you want to get some mice repellent, or you want to get those ones that kind of shuts on the mouse like this. That's the most or nicest way. Some people use poison, but a lot of us are a lot of people don't like that because of the birds. They think, oh, what if the birds were to get a hold of it? Now you have dead birds around too. So you just got to be responsible. And also, if you use any pesticides on your garden, it's a good idea to use it when the bees and everything is asleep, like at dawn or early in the morning, so that you're not killing off your bee population, which you need to pollinate. And lastly, actually, I was going to skip this, but I think it's important that you know. It's a good idea. Oh, is this more salvia? I should have kept that. Oh, I wanted to keep you. Oh, wow. You might come back. What was I saying? Oh, God. I was going to say something really important. Now I can't remember it. Shame, shame, shame. If you are growing, flowers and they stop growing and producing flowers for you, sometimes you just need to cut off the old flowers that are dead on the plant. I know and we call that deadheading. So if you were to cut off the old flowers on the plant, then because those old flowers would turn into seeds most of the time, and your plant would start thinking, oh, I need to produce seed. But if you can cut off those old flowers, then it will now know that, okay, and it will produce more flowers and the blooms will get bigger and bigger. So thank you for joining me, and blessings on your garden. I hope that you have an abundance this year. Bye.